Thank you for this interview. Please let me begin with your legendary film.
No.
Okay. What's your impression on the general development taking place after the release of Inconvenient Truth?
Well, in the last 17 years, we have seen tremendous progress in the development of solutions to the climate crisis. The cost of electricity from solar energy and wind energy, for example, that cost has come down far more and far faster than anyone thought was possible. Really remarkable. Also, the development of electric vehicles, some of them here in Korea, run by batteries, many of them made here in Korea. This is also a tremendous success over the last 17 years. We've seen the emergence of green hydrogen as an opportunity, regenerative agriculture, sustainable forestry, and many other solutions. But the rapid development of these solutions has to be seen in the context of the climate crisis continuing to get worse because emissions are still going up.
Right.
And the climate crisis is, in the main, a fossil fuel crisis because the principal source of the global warming pollution, the greenhouse gases, is from the burning of fossil fuels. So we can't pretend that trying to capture it as it's burned, as the fuels are burned, or sucking it out of the air with giant vacuum cleaners is a practical way to do it. It may play a small role. Maybe they'll figure out how to make that more realistic than it is now. The real answer is to reduce the use of fossil fuels as quickly as possible. And so far, the crisis is still getting worse faster than we are deploying solutions. But we're making so much progress on the solutions that we've gained a lot of momentum. And I'm convinced that soon we will be gaining on the crisis itself.
Okay. Here in Korea, energy and climate policy policy-making processes are highly polarized here in Korea between two major political parties. So how is it in the US, and what's your advice to Korean decision makers?
Well, climate policy has some degree of polarization in almost every country. And in my country, the United States overcame the polarization enough to pass the so-called Inflation Reduction Act, the biggest climate legislation that any nation has passed in all of history. I'm very proud of what President Biden and the Congress have done there. But there is still polarization. And one reason there's polarization in many countries is that a lot of the corporations that make a tremendous amount of money from continuing our dependence on fossil fuels are fighting against the solutions, and they are using their resources and their public relations facilitators and their lobbyists and campaign contributors to really provoke the polarization because they use that to slow down the solutions. But Mother Nature is telling us in ever more persuasive ways, we've got to address this. It's getting worse every year. Just look at the temperatures here in Korea this summer. Just look at the incredible downpour just last month here in Seoul. Look at the drought in the southern part of the country. All of the consequences that every nation is now feeling. We have to act. And I think the solutions will come when there is enough pressure from the grassroots, from average citizens who see this and feel this in their own lives, when they say to the political and business leaders, wait a minute, we respect your desire to keep making money from these poisonous, polluting processes, but enough is enough. We have got to think about our children. We've got to think about humanity's future, which is now at risk. So I'm optimistic that we are going to solve this, but we need people in every profession, in every city, in every location to be a part of a political movement to demand action.
Right. In Korea, there is still a strong view that investing in energy and industrial transition is a cost. So how can you change that?
Actually, the cost of electricity produced by solar and wind is now cheaper in most of the world than electricity produced from burning fossil fuels. Korea has been one of the last countries where this cost has fallen below the cost of fossil fuels. But within the next year, Korea is joining the rest of the world. solar electricity, for example, is the cheapest in the history of the world of any energy source. Wind, particularly offshore wind, which is a wonderful opportunity for Korea, can provide all of the electricity that Korea needs without pollution and without the global warming pollution either. And you know, when you burn fossil fuels, you create not only the global warming pollution, the carbon dioxide and methane, you also produce the dust, the particulate pollution that gets into people's lungs and creates heart disease and lung diseases. All around the world, more than 8 million people die every year breathing in this pollution. And Korea has some of the worst of this pollution of any country, the worst of any nation in the OECD group. China and Russia are worse, but Korea has a very serious problem. They can be solved by investing more in the renewable sources. Also, the expert studies have found that a won invested in renewable energy creates 3 times as many jobs as a won invested in fossil fuels. So it's good for health reasons, for job creation reasons, and for reasons of giving hope to people that we can and will solve the climate crisis.
So yesterday you said the portion of renewable energy here in Korea is about 5% or something like that. So when you first knew that, how did you feel it? I think you must have been really surprised to see this.
I was a little surprised. I was less surprised when I came to understand that Korea has not yet crossed the line below which the electricity from renewables is cheaper than electricity from fossil fuels. And I'm hopeful that since we know you are going to cross that line within the next year, Korea can quickly catch up with the rest of the world. I was surprised, though, because the engineering expertise and the innovation that Korea is known for will allow Korea to quickly catch up, just as it has allowed Korea over the last 60 years to rise in such a dramatic and inspiring way to join the ranks of great nations.
Okay, this is a quite important question to us. You have sounded the alarm on climate change with various scientific evidence. And as you said, it's time to act now. So what role do you expect think tanks to play at this point?
Well, I think organizing people to effectively apply pressure to political leaders and business leaders is the most important way to help solve the climate crisis. Of course, all of us can make changes in our consumption patterns and choose an electric vehicle where it's possible and choose renewable energy. But the single most effective thing a person can do and a think tank can do is to find more effective ways to put political pressure on politicians, on government officials, and on business leaders to speed up the change toward this sustainability transition that every nation in the world is aiming for.
So in the US, the government actually listened to the voices from the think tank?
Yes, I think that the think tank community also includes some think tanks that are financed by the polluters, and sometimes they have more resources to use. But that means that it's even more important for the organizations and think tanks that represent the people and are working to improve the environment and solve the climate crisis do even more. And I'm optimistic when I see all the work that's underway here.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you.